Let's go back to one of our top stories now. Electricity Minister Dr. Kgosientsho Ramokgopa gave an update on South Africa's Energy Action Plan and an outlook on the generation capacity. Let's now get some analysis with energy expert Professor Sampson Mamphweli from Stellenbosch University. Prof, a pleasure to have you on the program this afternoon. Now, the Minister of Electricity also provided this update on government's implementation of what's called the Energy Action Plan. Could you start by giving us your insights on the significance of this action plan and also its impact on the current energy landscape in the country?
Good afternoon to you. Just a small change. I'm now with the South African National Energy Development Institute in Sandton. I've left Stellenbosch University. In terms of the Energy Action Plan, we will all recall that this is the plan that the President announced about a year ago, which is in July last year, to deal with the current electricity crisis, which then resulted in a number of actions that were put in place, and the Minister of Electricity is now responsible for implementation of that particular plan, and he gives us updates, on a weekly basis. So today he gave an update in terms of the performance of the Eskom fleet. This update was more on that because that is part of the major part of the Energy Action Plan is basically to fix the current Eskom coal fleet. And, they indicated that there has been some progress that have been made. For instance, from the time the Energy Action Plan was started to be implemented to date, we've seen the energy availability factor of the coal fleet improving drastically from about 46% or so to about 60%, which is quite good. But there are areas of concern, obviously. The issue around the partial load losses that are sitting at more than 6,000 megawatts, for me, that's a huge concern. There's still very high breakdowns sitting at about 15,000 megawatts. That's a huge concern for me.
Let's expand on these key points that you've mentioned, especially on the reduction in the rolling blackouts due to intensified maintenance. What is your assessment of the feasibility as well as the effectiveness of this strategy, and what improvements do you believe it can bring to the reliability of power supply here?
So the reliability it's mainly reliant on the way Eskom fixes the fleet. So as things stand, I'm picking up that there is some kind of stagnation in terms of the improvements especially on the side of the breakdowns. We're sitting at the last time the minister talked about 14,000 plus megawatts. That was still giving problems in terms of breakdowns. That number has increased slightly to 15,000 megawatts. So for me, that is a big area of concern, because once we deal with that, we will be able to lessen the severity of load shedding. If you look at the projected peak demand of about 29,000 megawatts, and we're sitting at the available capacity of about 28,000 megawatts, and then you remove the partial load losses and all other losses that we have in the system, we expect that the severity of load shedding will decrease slightly, depending on how much megawatts Eskom take down for regular maintenance. So the biggest issue for me is still the fact that the coal fleet has aged quite a lot, and that comes with a lot of uncertainty. And the biggest issue has been the fact that while the coal fleet was aging, it was not properly maintained, because the age of the fleet does not necessarily mean that it would not be reliable. So what we're seeing now is that stagnation around the 14 to 15,000 megawatts, breakdowns that are becoming difficult for Eskom to resolve. However, there are areas that will improve such as areas around Kusile power station, which is quite new. When the nuclear one of the units at the nuclear power station comes back on to life. Those will bring a lot of improvements. Basically, in the new generation capacity side of things, and some of the renewals here and there that will bring some form of relief. The challenge then is that while Eskom has been given this bailout by government to deal with this maintenance backlog, Eskom does not necessarily have enough liquid cash in their balance sheet to do proper maintenance that is required. They need about 200 billion rands to fix the fleet. But at the moment, they're doing it in trips and things like that, using the current cash flow that they have. And that, for me, needs to be attended to urgently. I think government needs to either make money available to Eskom in liquid cash that Eskom can then use to fix some of this coal fleet, or simply make a bold decision to say, let's maintain things as they are and rely on bringing in new generation capacity, mainly from renewables. And through regulations, government has managed to increase the share of renewable energy that we will see, or new generation capacity that we will see in the next 12 to 18 months coming online.
Now, Dr. Ramokgopa also interestingly mentioned the operation of the Kusile power station and the plans to bring additional units online. Could you provide some context on the challenges which are faced by power stations like Kusile and the potential benefits of having them fully operational here?
Most of the challenges at Kusile have got to do with the emissions. And I like the fact that Dr. Ramokgopa also indicated that the emissions, the power station was not necessarily adhering to the emission standards. And when we talk about emissions, and I need to put this into context, because people start to talk about climate change and our commitments to, at international level and all that, they forget the fact that this also boils down to the air that the people in the immediate surrounding areas are breathing. That is why government is taking this very seriously, to say we need to solve those desulfurization units so that we can release air that is at a standard that is acceptable in terms of the air that we release to the space, so that it does not necessarily affect the health of the communities that are within a certain radius within that particular power station. So those are some of the issues that Eskom is dealing with. Obviously, improving the performance efficiency of the plant as well. So those are quite key issues that the government needs to deal with before December, and some of those units will come back to life by October, November, according to the minister. We expect that they should be back live around December, and those will bring in quite a lot of generation capacity. We're looking at plus or minus 3,000 megawatts that will come with that, and literally that is dealing with 3 stages of load shedding.
Now, diesel expenditure has been a notable aspect of the energy strategy here. Let's also speak to that element as well. I mean, with around 12.4 billion rand spent on burning diesel for power generation, how do you view this approach in terms of sustainability and also its impact on South Africa's economic landscape here?
So the diesel expenditure is quite high, but it's a necessary kind of expenditure as things stand. At the moment, if we don't burn diesel and bring in that generation capacity that is required, the economy bleeds more than 12 billion rands at every stage of load shedding. The numbers out there that we're looking at, about 500 billion rand that load shedding is eroding from the South African economy. The economic growth projections are below a percentage by the IMF, and many other economists have predicted very low economic growth, and all that has been associated with the insecurity of supply of electricity, because electricity is the one that is required to fire up the economy, basically in the production of goods and services. So if you look at that and you look at what we call the cost of unserved energy versus the cost of burning diesel, you would agree that it's much better for now, while we're fixing all other problems, to keep the lights on using the diesel expenditure. It's not sustainable, and those open cycle gas turbines are not designed to provide primary power, so to speak. They're designed to assist under very difficult conditions, not to be running 24 hours. So that is another problem that we may run into in the near future. But for now, we have no option but to keep burning that diesel so that we can keep the lights on and keep the economy going.
Now, the Minister also mentioned 3 key interventions to address load shedding as well during winter. I mean, improving plant efficacy, demand reduction, and burning diesel. From your perspective, what are the short-term and long-term implications of really relying on diesel as a backup energy source here?
So on the short-term basis, the impact is that we will be able to keep the lights on. On the negative side, we will spend quite a lot of money on diesel that we're burning in these open cycle gas turbines. But on the upside, we will be able to ensure that the economy is not negatively affected, because once the economy gets negatively affected, we lose jobs, and we've lost quite a lot of jobs. Due to load shedding, which we don't want to see going forward. In terms of the sustainability, it's not sustainable to burn diesel. That's why all these other measures need to come into play. The fixing of the coal fleet itself, that needs to be done. That's why in the beginning I indicated that I'm very much concerned about the fact that there seems to be a stagnation around 14,000 to 15,000 megawatts in terms of breakdown, or what we call unplanned capacity loss factor. Right. That is quite high in my view, and it seems to be, it looks like Eskom is unable to go below that. The moment we go below that, then that will be much better. The partial load losses of 6,200 and something megawatts, that's quite high. When we, about 2-3 years ago, the partial load losses were sitting at about 4,000 megawatts, and that was also still high. And that to me talks to the aging coal fleet, because with age and the fact that it was not properly maintained, history has shown that you start to see a lot of partial load losses which can be uncontrollably high. And that's where I think Eskom needs to keep an eye on and try to resolve that as speedily as possible. On the upside, government, the Energy Action Plan has got a number of initiatives that will kick in quite soon. In terms of load reduction, reducing some of the load, I know the Minister of Electricity is working on various measures. Some of them include demand-side management, which he will be implementing quite soon, and that can result in, reducing about 3,000 megawatts from in terms of demand from the grid, which will be equivalent to 3 stages of load shedding. And there's a whole range of other initiatives that will be coming on in the next few months.
As we approach the end of winter, the Minister has also expressed this hope for a decrease in load shedding intensity. I mean, could you provide your perspective on what factors might actually contribute to this reduction and how it aligns with the overall energy plan here?
So I've looked at the demand forecast by Eskom. It's sitting at about 29,000 megawatts peak demand, and as things stand, in terms of the capacity that's available, we're sitting at about 28,000 megawatts. So the difference is about 1,000 megawatts. But then we have we need what we call the generation reserves that need to come from that available generation capacity, which then necessitates the implementation of load shedding so that we can maintain the integrity of the grid. So that on its own, if you look at all those factors, you're looking at something between stage 3 and stage 2, stage 3 load shedding. So those are the factors. But from the history of the power system, we shouldn't be too optimistic about the 29,000 megawatts. I think it will initially go to about 34,000 megawatts, and then it will start to decline.
Now, we are fast running out of time, but before I let you go, Prof, the Minister didn't provide a clear timeline for the end of load shedding or the appointment of a full-time CEO for Eskom. From your standpoint, how crucial is a transparent communication and timely decision-making in building public trust and stability in the energy sector?
That is quite important, and the issues that you've raised are quite key. And I must commend government and the minister in terms of the information that they are putting out in public. I watched the entire briefing today. He gave quite a lot of information and a lot of useful technical information going down to power station level in terms of what is happening. The appointment of the Eskom CEO, I don't know why government is delaying on that, but I think they were waiting for them for the breakup of Eskom into the 3 business using units, companies, generation, transmission, and distribution, so that they can appoint the 3 CEOs. I'm just speculating. But for me, for stability at Eskom, it's important that Eskom gets a CEO as soon as yesterday.
That is Professor Sampson Mamphweli. Of course, he's from the South African National Energy Development Institute.